Asking how many people here still own or at one time owned a plasma TV? Well, there you go. There's your answer. The trick with OLED to me is basically a tube without the tubes. It behaves the same way. So we now have all the advantages of an emissive display. We have wide viewing angles, we have really deep blacks, and we have a very linear progression through a grayscale and accurate color rendering. The black thing is important, no question. What's really important is low shadow detail. And we have a movie TV series here that's going to have lots of low shadow detail in it. How often have you heard somebody watching on a regular TV, say LCD, well, there's so much dark stuff, I can't see what's going on. Well, now you will be able to see what's going on. So it's dynamic range is a part of this. Reproduction of colors, consistent reproduction of colors at low levels of black, and consistent reproduction of shades of gray. Every shade of gray, there's a color. Every two colors is another shade of color. And now we have new color spaces coming with billions of colors in it. So again, part of this new challenge. So it's, again, emissive, wide viewing angles, deep blacks. Picture quality is the same no matter where you're looking unless you're behind the TV. And really, really accurate, really saturated colors.
So for normal people, it just looks great?
It does, and you're right. I have actually, I do like to go to the big box stores as a secret shopper and go in there and ask like I don't know anything. And just, you know, people's impressions, and when they see the OLEDs, they do notice the difference. They say, yes, I like that picture.
Yeah, it's pretty demonstrable. So is there a color story we want to tell as well as a black story? Well,
with color, it's really more, again, about emissive display, CRTs, plasma, OLEDs. You're looking at the source of the colored light, so it's a very saturated, very pure color. And you can dial it in and make it as accurate as you need to. So you can use flesh tones, colors that really pop, very subtle colors. One of the hardest things for displays to do is pastel shades. There's a lot of ones with pastel shades in them, or grays with light color shades. And the OLED does all of these really well. And you may know that some of these are being used as reference monitors for color grading. So you know, there's more people now that are using this technology to actually prep the content that you watch at home. So it would make sense to use a TV that uses the same technology to watch it at home, because you may not be seeing everything that they're building into the color grading and the gamma correction.
Metallics also look awesome on OLED. It's demonstrable. Something goes by with a car with a chrome bumper. Tim, what's that about? It's demonstrably better.
Well, yeah, as Pete said, just the ability to accurately render color. We've noticed that with the gold color as well. Yeah. There's some clips from some of the, I think it's a Harry Potter film where there's some gold. We look at it side by side with some other sets, and just the richness and the luster of the gold comes out much better and much more rich looking on the OLED than other sets.
I wouldn't be doing a good moderator job if I didn't bring up the three-letter fictitious concept that's in the planning stages right now, but will surely be written about by the brilliant press people in the room, staring at you and you know who you are. HDR. The people are going to guaranteed compare this to whatever the HDR standard is going to be. Do you want to talk about that for 1 second down there, guys? I know
well, HDR is interesting. We now have cameras that can capture 15 stops of light. And if you've seen the video that these cameras shoot, it's pretty amazing. I mean, extremely bright highlights, very deep blacks. So the challenge for display manufacturers to reproduce that accurately, and to reproduce that, you've got to start with a display that can do a very, very deep black and do those very low levels of gray to come out of it, which makes OLED a very good candidate for this. Not all these standards are in place yet. Everybody should keep in mind that HDR is still taking baby steps. We don't have all the standards for formatting to it, wrapping it, and delivering it to the home. But it helps to know that we actually have display technology that can show it, can actually reproduce high dynamic range images.
And the other thing I want to just amplify what Pete says, it's not just about peak brightness. A lot of the times when we're reading about HDR, what's referred to most often is the ability to hit some unbelievable peak brightness. And like Pete said, it's more about the number of stops. So starting with a perfect black level certainly allows for any requirement of dynamic range. And you're going to see some later today. The clip I looked at yesterday that you're going to see of Daredevil, I don't want to take any of Matt's thunder away, but it had a huge difference in spots of bright light and dark and shadow detail in the same frame. And well, I'll let you be the judge, but it looked pretty incredible to me. So this isn't even technically high dynamic range content, or technically high dynamic range set, because as Shelley mentioned, the standards still haven't been set. But I think you're going to see a pretty incredible dynamic range on this TV.
So just to finish up the tech conversation, the other concept after dynamic range for black levels is color gamut. So the widest possible color gamut, or wide color gamut. Talk to me just a little bit about that, so everybody who's here to write about tech can go into the WCG, and then we'll start talking about why the picture looks great.
Well, for years, we've worked with a relatively small color gamut that was defined by what we could get out of the CRT and phosphors. We have new gamuts now. We have what's called the DCI gamut. There's a P3 color space. That's the minimum. It can actually be a lot larger. This is considerably larger than what we have now, and there are very few things that can actually reproduce all the colors, or most of the colors in that P3 space, and OLED technology happens to be one of them, but OLEDs are here today. So the wider color space, that's why I mentioned the grayscale is so important. For every color, you need to start with gray, and then you mix colors, and you get a level, and you get luminance. Well, now we can push billions of colors into a TV, and we're now starting to see 10-bit panels. The actual imaging panels are 10-bit panels.
Is that for me? I'm sorry. I was just
Marvel's security
Take a message.
entirely could be. All right, so let me, I don't mean to cut you off, but that was a good phone cutoff for us. Scott, so we can display astounding pictures, but where do we get them?
Good question.
I was teeing that one up for you.
Yeah, that's quite a soft. I don't want to take that softball so easily. Yeah, so before you would go buy discs, and they were all mastered to the CRT-based standards, which meant they were expected to be viewed on displays that weren't very bright, with not a great range of colors, and that was all you could get. And now that we can deliver content over the net, and we can improve the quality of that content basically in real time, as the standards evolve, we just go back and we get the most out of the sources that we can possibly get. We can deliver better and better experiences. So now we'll deliver HDR content as soon as the standards are ready, which is going to be very shortly. We're looking forward to hopefully, later this year, not making promises, but hopefully later this year, we're going to be able to start delivering high dynamic range content, which has these improvements to these kinds of displays.
Fantastic. So it's great that we can get the content to the set. It's fantastic that the set can display the content. Matt, talk to me about the content.
Well, I think as it stands today, there was a time where the imaging chain actually was a lot more straightforward. We had motion picture negatives. We understood the range of tones could be captured on the film. We had print stocks, which was basically a set viewing parameter, and we knew how these things were going to all translate together. And if I have highlights sitting here and shadows sitting here, when I run it through the motion picture bath, print it, and look at it in a theater with a standardized bulb, viewing experience, I'm going to get this result. I think what's gone on in TV for far too long is we sort of you're forced to work to the lowest common denominator, meaning that we've had OLED technology on set for a long time now, and you sort of look at it, but you're often not in a Netflix scenario, but in a regular sort of traditional TV scenario. You're looking at this monitor and you're kind of having to hedge your bets a little bit. You're saying, okay, well, on a tablet it's going to be this, on a CRT it's going to be that, if it's Rec 709 it'll be this, if it's an extended range it'll be that. So you're having to do a lot more guesswork in terms of choices that are being made in lighting, camera placement, lens choice, all those sorts of things start to compound into a very sort of tricky scenario for.
So wait, that's really interesting, and there are a lot of people who assume you always shoot to the highest possible level, and then you just figure they'll down convert and life will be okay. And you're saying, from your point of view, you're making choices, literally production choices, based on the consumer experience. So.
Oh, sure, absolutely. I mean, if when I watch a movie I've done on an airplane, that's an interesting scenario because you sort of start to go.
It's formatted differently than the original content.
And the amazing part is having a partner like Netflix that does not operate like any motion picture or television studio I've ever worked with, where I would have directors show up on this set and we'd be working and be very excited about the look, and we'd sort of tease them with dailies to get them into the flow. And, you get there on the day and the guy's kind of sitting there leaning over being like, they let you get away with this? That this is going to be okay? Absolutely, it's going to be okay. And because we are now, we've taken control of the delivery again in a way that is incredibly exciting for the business. And you know, it's the same. I mean, everything from watching a movie on a plane to sitting on the subway and somebody's got, you know, the trailer for Daredevil up on their little iPad or whatever you have it, and you sort of look over and go, oh yeah, that's looking pretty good. Like the translation is so much smoother now, and I think that this technology is just going to elevate that in terms of knowing what you're getting at home and being able to push the boundaries and have the sort of strength and support you need from the viewing experience in the home platform.
So, I mean, you've sort of covered it, but do you think you will see the production community change more dramatically than you've described with the advent of 4K? Because 4Ks, there have been about, last year, 1,300,000 sets sold in the United States. They're projecting about 4 million sets to ship US this year. So you're going to start to see a lot of 4K sets in consumer environments. Do you think that the production community is going to...
Well, I think that, you know, for a long time there was sort of an arms race going on between the various sort of high-end digital cinema camera manufacturers, and there was an argument between bit depth and resolution, and some guys went down the resolution road, making cameras that could, you know, very quickly went to 5K, 6K, it was just sort of going through the roof. But at the end of the day, you know, you would have these conversations, well, oh, we gotta do it in 5K, have you seen it in 5K? And it's like, well guys, we're down-resing. Every single piece of this media gets down-res to, you know, 1080, 720 sometimes, so you're not really, the resolution conversation didn't really come into it until, you know, we started to get into 4K delivery, and that's a whole new conversation, because all of a sudden you put that 2K or 1080 content on a system that is native 4K, and you're going, oh, well, that doesn't quite, you know, it doesn't hold up the same way that it used to. So I think that we've all been sitting around scratching our heads going like, why are we beating ourselves up trying to capture in 4K just to down-res to 1080? But now if you can deliver it, as we have been in theaters for a while now, but even theaters, a lot of them are still 2K. So, you know, it's exciting to know that the actual heavy lifting of the resolution is going to be delivered.
So I get to say this, and the LG guys don't get to say this. I have noticed that when you take 2K content on an LG set and you up-convert it to 4K, the results are emotionally quite satisfying. LG guys, kudos to you. You want to talk about why that is? Because truthfully, in the competitive landscape, every up-convert is not equal. So you guys have some secret sauce. Can you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I can't walk you through step by step, but I can tell you that right from the beginning, all of our 4K sets have used very powerful upscaling technology. You know, we knew from the beginning it was going to take a while for the content community to migrate to native 4K content. It's happening, but the fact of the matter is what most people are watching most of the time is either coming from their cable or satellite set-top box. At best case, that's going to be 1080i, or from a Blu-ray disc player, which is obviously great on its own. So the ability to take whatever input signal is there and do a quality upscaling job without adding a lot of artifacts and artificial looking parts of the picture was important. So a lot of effort was put into that from the beginning. We have, for the new sets this year, it uses a 2-chip process, 6 distinct steps to go through the analysis and interpolation and upscaling from 2 to 4K, or from whatever to 4K. And as you said, the output.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Great.
When you guys master at Netflix, like there's 2 processes, right? Because Matt's got to master the finished film, and you have to prep it for distribution. Can you guys talk about what happens, or can you tell me what happens? Netflix gets a deliverable. It's ready to go at 4K, but it's not quite ready to go because you guys have to do all your Netflix stuff to it. So what do you guys do, and how is that all going to impact what we see?
So we get the best possible source. So we want to get as much information as we can at the source. We want to get the widest color, the proper, the highest resolution, and so on. But we have to deliver that to a wide range of screens, and so we will encode that content in a variety of formats at a variety of resolutions intended for different screen sizes, but we'll always try to deliver the best possible. So, for example, we'll take 4K content, and clearly we will try to deliver 4K to the end device whenever possible, but network conditions change. We want to make sure things start up quickly, and so we won't necessarily be able to stream 4K resolution 100% of the time, which is why we're really happy that the upscaling is well implemented on these end devices. But we're always making best effort, but prepared to deal with the realities of a network-based ecosystem.
Speaking of amazing content, do we have amazing content yet? All right, so we're going to do something very unusual. Because the amazing, let's talk about the NSA for a moment and cybersecurity. The trailer you're about to see, and I just want you to know, the trailer you're about to see is completely contraband. Now, you all signed NDAs to be in here. You can talk all about the trailer, how outstanding it looks, how amazing it is, except you can't talk plot line because that's embargoed. And you'll be chased down by Matt, who will beat you senseless with some kind of breakfast food from outside if you do something, uncool with it. However, this is, we want to show a little bit of this content, and let's see, I was supposed to say something else. Oh yeah, I forgot. You know all those billions of cameras that you guys get, because I know you're all carrying an LG G3 in your pocket right now, because those iPhones, they suck, compared to the LG G3. Do not take it out and take a picture of this, because then, again, Matt's going to have to chase you down.
Which required us to rely heavily on our knowledge of how the lighting can function in a realistic way in terms of you're not hiding sources there. That's all timing of real practical units that are coming on and off as the camera's moving around, and it's sort of a pretty dynamic dance, but you're looking at going from 100% pure, the blackest black on the edge of his mask when he's framed against that little highlight on the wall and then bursts into the room, to the fluorescent bank that's hanging above the door on the end, and you're dealing with trying to fit everything into a range that's going to give the audience sort of the movie stylized experience that they're after, and knowing it's not going to fall apart lets you work that way. I don't think 5 years ago we would have approached that scene the same way at all, because it wouldn't have felt comfortable. Knowing it was going to be there back in. So.
Wow, well that's fantastic. Thank you so much. By the way, just sitting here, the viewing angle of an OLED screen is, I wish all of you could just sit where I'm sitting and catch this from this side. Anybody who's ever done viewing angle on LEDs knows that there's a limited field of view. This is astounding. In the time, just before we take some questions, and I know we're going to have a little Q&A, I want to talk a little bit about what's next. Here you have a storytelling dramatically impacted by delivery technology. You've got Netflix enabling and empowering consumers to consume content differently, to enjoy content in a way they could never enjoy before. LG is providing a technology, as are other manufacturers to be fair, but none quite like OLED, to bring up, I don't even call it home theater. I don't know what to call it. Just, this is, for a while we had this idea of home theater systems. I don't know what is it?
It's the best experience you could imagine right now for this kind of content. There's no place where you can see this at the same fidelity. Movie theaters give you a different experience, and
Sure.
It's great in its own right, but in terms of consumers having access to the best fidelity experience for this kind of content, this is it. And I will also add, this kind of content is exactly why we implemented automatic play, because once you start, I'm sorry, the clip ended. You just want to engage with it.
For years it was interesting, and I think those of you who have been in business a while, Bob Zitter used to be a tech guy over at HBO, and he had a really specific way he liked HBO to look. The guys at Discovery did that too, and they worked really hard. You were flipping through the channels, and they used to have a thing, it's not TV, it's HBO, and that was somewhat about the content, but the quality of the picture on almost anything when you watch HBO, you kind of knew you were watching HBO. This was the quality time they're going to happen. This takes that to a whole other place, and I don't want to make too big of a deal out of it because people think it's hyperbole, but I literally think this is a transitional time in the business. You've got a lot of different delivery mechanisms and infinite choice. Consumers can choose anything, anywhere, anytime. But when you think about a high-end experience and you think about what, it's just never existed before, and that's kind of super cool. Who's got some questions out in the audience for this amazing panel? Sir.
I have a question for Tim and I have a question for Scott.
Hi, Stuart.
Hi, Tim. The first, for Tim, I want to ask you about the emissive burn-in issues, potential, and what technologies the OLEDs are going to have to sort of compensate for that, as well as the potential lifespan of the OLEDs, considering the problems that OLED has had with blue phosphors. And for Scott, the Roku 3 was just announced, does not support HEVC, and there have been stories in the media the last couple of days that the Apple TV will not support 4K. Or is Netflix at all concerned that in the 4K ecosystem that the media streamers don't seem to be adapting to 4K?
Okay. All right.
Those are great questions, by the way. Thank you. That was an underhand, fast-pitch softball. Go.
Okay, we prefer to call it temporary image retention. But like any emissive technology, you know, the risk is always there. However, with just a little bit of common sense and care, there's not a huge risk of any kind of burn-in or image retention. And by common sense, I mean not leaving things like this up there for too long. I mean, certainly for the duration of time we have here, it's not going to be a problem. If you left this on for days at a time, yeah, you're going to have some uneven image retention on the screen. But there are some factors built into the TV itself that will help mitigate that. One is an automatic brightness limitation. If the TV senses static images over a certain period of time, it'll start to ratchet down the brightness to take care of that. And also, when TV is switched off, there's a kind of refreshing algorithm that the screen will go through to even out any of that. Regarding the uneven aging of phosphors, keep in mind that LG uses the WRGB method of OLED. So essentially you have your organic layer is producing white light, and we're using color filters and refiners to make the red, green, and blue. So you don't have a blue phosphor per se. So it's not going to age unevenly. That's one of the other benefits of using the WRGB. You know, these sets have been on the market for almost 2 years now. And with a few rare exceptions, there have not been any widespread reports of burn-in or image retention that's been causing issues. Oh, well, your last question was lifespan. LG Display tells us that with normal usage, it should be about 30,000 hours to have brightness. So, you know, at 6 hours a day, I think that equates to something like 20 years, or you can do the math, but it's probably well outside the normal replacement cycle for the TV.
And I was just checking online to see the full specs for the new Apple TV. I'm joking, it doesn't exist, so I can't really tell you. What I'll say is that we're really excited to bring 4K to smart TVs because it gives us a direct path to realizing the best picture quality possible, because we don't have to worry about HDMI, we don't have to worry about how 4K and HDR standards are realized from one device to another. The ecosystem will work itself out. Eventually, the whole ecosystem will upgrade to enable the latest quality specs or standards. But for now, smart TV is kind of the tip of the spear in terms of bringing these advancements into consumers' worlds.
Other questions, sir?
This is directed to Matt, please. Could you give us a little bit of the nuts and bolts on the capture side in terms of the type of camera you're using? Is it 49.6 or 2160? Is it 3840? Is it 10-bit capture? Is it 444, 412?
English, speak English!
He understands me completely. So the capture side with some specifics.
Sure.
And then the altering side, are we going back for a 10-bit reproduction? Are we going anything other than 420? In other words, kind of
Sure.
I
can't answer that, yeah.
Why we're not doing HDR, so I'm not going
Yes.
to.
You're not doing
that.
HDR.
But in terms of color CAD and also for P3,
Yeah.
are we doing standard CAD? Are we doing P86? Can you just get into
Sure.
All right, Matt.
Okay,
So
some
we were-
slopes I want to write.
we could be on that a while, but the Reader's Digest is, they were a whole bunch of Red Epic Dragon-enabled sensors. So that means up to 6K of capture. Netflix had the 4K mandate. We did a lot of testing. I determined that because in a show like this where you're bouncing between frame rates almost on an hourly basis, it didn't make any sense to me to shoot 24 frames a second work at 6K and then all of our high-speed work having to drop down to 4K, because obviously, you know, in terms of data rate, it's not manageable to shoot 120 frames a second at 6K. So we decided that we would use 4K as our base for all the work from 24 up to some of that being 120 frames a second, all doable with the Red Epic Dragon. The capture format is what they call red log, which is basically a super low contrast curve that we refer to sort of as digital, longingly referred to as the digital negative, which is sort of the full span of reproducible tones in the imaging system. Not intended for viewing, obviously. We're applying LUTs to the back end of that act as print stocks and basically change the curve of that negative into a positive viewable image that has an infinite amount of contrast, and some shows have a much softer look to them. Some shows like this have a much harder look. So in conjunction with Steph Sonnenfeld at Company 3 and a lot of years really of research and development that's gone into 3D LUT technology, we've created a certain amount of viewing LUTs that we sort of use for on-set viewing that previews what we're going to do in the final grade and allows our dailies colorists to then apply CDL correction. So it's basically LUT plus CDL equals the image that you see in dailies, and then going on the back end, the post pipeline, that red log is then transcoded into DPX. I mean, I imagine it's 10-bit. I'm not entirely sure, but we work in a DPX base that then has the viewing LUT plus the CDL applied to it as a toggle function, and the final grade is a conjunction of the dailies work plus, you know, whatever final tweaks are done, power windows, so on and so forth, to sort of enhance the image. And these guys are obviously heavily involved in that, knowing their delivery specs and, you know, what the tolerances are for how dark can dark be. And I was amazed. I mean, I've never worked with a studio that was so open to the sort of extremes that we were playing with. So that's the basic nuts and bolts of how that all came together.
The final finished product's 24 frames per second.
Yes.
Is it going from 0 or is it higher?
No, it should be. I mean, I don't actually know what I mean, we would deliver a DPX sequence for mastering, and then they would take it to. I mean, I imagine it's an MPEG delivery or something.
Okay, and it's a 10-bit.
Yeah.
We're going
certainly.
to take another question. Not that I don't love this conversation, I do. It's because my DPX is bigger than yours. Go ahead.
Thanks for telling me that.